every time I watch the film V for Vendetta, I just sit there thinking, Daddy? Yeah, I get a lot of undue comments about my physical appearance. Recently a man stopped me in the street and said, "Excuse me, sir, are you Jesus?" I was like, well, no, I'm not Jesus. I can't possibly be Jesus because I'm an atheist, right? And you can't be both the son of God and an atheist. Because, for one thing, imagine the daddy issues. It's one thing if you think your dad never loved you. It's entirely different if you think he's an ontological contradiction and does not exist. Mind you, that's not the oddest thing that someone said to me in the street. Recently I was flying for my sketch show here in Edinburgh, and I stopped a guy at the top of Leith Walk and said, "Hey mate, do you want to come to a free sketch show in half an hour?" And he looked at me, he looked at my flyer, he looked back at me, and then just said, "I'm so fat." Now, either that is just the best surreal comeback to being flyed, or it's his interior monologue and I probably shouldn't talk about it in stand-up. So, a bit about myself. I studied English literature at my degree, and I had a bit of a shock in my second year when I discovered I have a disability. I am actually dyslexic, and ever since I found out about this, I've become very, very worried about my spelling and grammar and the fact that I might misread things. And I do tend to misread things all the time. For example, news headlines. I recently saw one that said, "David Cameron to set up online porn curb." Unfortunately, I read that as "David Cameron to set up online porn club." Which in many ways would be advantageous because it would bring a very literal meaning to the phrase Tory wankers. You see, I'm quite a politically active person. I do think, correct spelling and language is important when you're trying to make a political point, particularly when on a protest. I was on a protest down in London a few months ago. It was a protest against cuts to education, and there were a group of students marching along through London carrying a banner that was meant to say, "Defend education!" I was like, yeah, great slogan. Then I looked at it again, and an E had gotten mixed up with a U. So what that actually said was, "Defund education!" Balance for your point, I guess. Worse still, I was on a Reclaim the Night march, a feminist march, and there was a woman marching along next to me holding a placard that was meant to say, "Condemn sexism!" I was like, yeah, sexism is bad. Unfortunately, what it actually said was, "Condom sexism!" Which invites us all into this scary new world of latex-based misogyny. It's not just the left that gets this wrong. I was reading an article recently about the far-right group, the English Defence League, and the picture with this article was a typical racist skinhead holding a protest sign that was meant to say something incredibly racist, which was, "No place in my town for Muslims." However, he had made one tiny spelling mistake that made this absolutely fantastic sign, because what it actually said was, "No place in my town for Muslin." For those of you who don't know, muslin is a kind of high-quality fabric, which suggests that racists, they're just really house-proud. "No more immigrants, close the borders." Why would we want to do that? Because they just won't go with the sofa. So I'm slightly left-wing. And, I do tell a lot of jokes about the right, but I have to admit I am quite scared by them. I do get intimidated by far-right and racist groups. One group I've been quite worried about recently is UKIP, the UK Independence Party, because they seem to have a bit more legitimacy than other far-right groups when they actually stand for some really terrible stuff. And a friend of mine recently described UKIP as being closeted racists, which I believe is a term for people who hate Narnians. These fucking fawns. They come out the wardrobe, they eat our Turkish delight, they sleep with our women, they made the snow go away. What colour is snow? White. Fucking disgrace. But the group that really does actually scare me is the English Defence League, and I say this because not that long ago I had an argument with someone who's in the English Defence League, and we had this massive argument about Britishness and immigration and national identity. And at the end I just said, "Look mate, I don't think of myself as British. My mum and her family are from Goa in India." And his response is, "Well, you should just fuck off back to India then." Now at the time, I was quite upset by this, but having thought about it, I've never been to India, and I would really quite like to go. So when he told me to fuck off back to India, was that not just a very aggressive offer of a holiday? Fuck off, I'll pay for your flights to your hotels and give you some spending money, just fuck off. Could it not be said that fascism is in fact an elaborate front for a struggling travel agency? With BNP flights, you too can fuck off back to where you came from. Anyway, guys, you've been an absolutely fantastic crowd. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the show.